Okay, welcome to Living the Empowered Life podcast. My name is Yvonne Ellis. This is episode 58 of the podcast. I hope that you are all doing well today. Well, Empowered Lifers, I have a really special episode. I want to welcome my guest, Kemi Akinola. She is a history maker. She is Deputy Leader of Wandsworth Borough Council, and she is the first Black woman in the 119-year history to be in this position. So first of all, I want to say congratulations for that. And also as well in the history of the Labour Party. Now, I think if you were in the States, the Labour Party is probably kind of similar to the Democratic Party. Is that right?
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah.
Liberal, a lot more liberal.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really pleased to have Kemi on the podcast today. This is going to be something that I am, really, really looking forward to. So besides all what I've just shared with you, she is also founder and director of a food bank initiative called Be Enriched, which is an initiative tackling food poverty in her local area. Also, she is chairwoman of a women's network and is called the Cooperative Party. So, this is a woman of many talents, a very busy woman. So I'm really appreciative of her time. Welcome, Kemi, to the podcast.
Thank you, Yvonne. I'm really pleased to be part of this.
Thank you for agreeing to come on. So how I know Kemi was that back in 2017, we were both part of a group in Wandsworth, which were part of the TEDx speakers. So we were part of that group in 2017. And as a matter of fact, we were probably the last group because since 2017, there hasn't been another TEDx Wandsworth. But no, there hasn't. There hasn't been another one since. We were in the last group. And I met Kemi during this time. We both did a TED Talk on different subjects. Kemi's was on her food bank initiative, Be Enriched, and mine was on how to empower survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And I can honestly say, I'm sure Kemi will agree with me, that it was quite a nerve-wracking experience being on that stage.
I've never been so nervous.
Was an extremely nerve-wracking experience. And just a little bit of a background to that as well. We had to go through an audition to be able to do the TED Talk as well. A 3-minute audition where we had to just summarize our talk and the important points. And then if we got past that initial audition, then we were selected to be TEDx speakers. But
over 6 months of training.
6 months of training, and definitely eye-opening experience and a very pressurized one.
My gosh.
So that is how I met Kemi, and I have been following Kemi, and Kemi's been following me on Twitter for a number of years. And I have seen her progression through all the things that she has done since the TEDx talk, beginning with her becoming counsellor in her local area, which is in Graveney in Tooting
Broadway now,
Yeah. And just seeing her kind of rise through all the things that she has been doing has just been inspirational. So, this is not where her story has started. Her story started many years before that. And, Kemi has gone through some things that we're going to talk about. She's had some life-changing experiences that she previously experienced, and we're going to get into that a little bit today. So my first question to you is, tell me a little bit about your background, coming up, your family, your background, where you were born.
Yeah, totally. I'm really pleased to be here, by the way. And Yvonne, thanks for bringing back those very scary memories of being in South Thames College on the red dot.
Yeah.
And you know what's very interesting? I remember someone saying to me at that, you should be a politician. And I said, absolutely no way. How the time has changed. So here I am. Yeah, so I'm actually from West Bromwich, which is just outside of Birmingham. I was born 15 minutes from West Brom Albion Football Stadium, and where it was. And then we moved to London when I was about 7 or 8, I think. So my heart is always in West Brom, but I now consider myself 100% a Londoner.
Yep.
And 100% a South Londoner. Sorry about North London, it's just not where it's at for me. And definitely South London. It's just a really amazing place to live. And I live in my ward in Tooting Broadway, and I've lived there for the past almost 20 years now. Growing up, I spent time visiting my family, but also being educated in Nigeria and Grenada, which is my heritage. So
okay.
I consider them all home, and then I consider them all back home, and I consider Tooting my home.
Okay, so you grew up in South London, but you've had very varied experiences because of your cultural background and stuff.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in South London?
Well, so I grew up in South London in the early 80s. Maybe it was late 80s. It seems so long ago. And if I'm honest, I went to school in Roehampton, and actually I was the subject of a lot of racist abuse. Being a very young child, I didn't really understand everything that was going on around me, because my mother tried to keep me out of some of the more violent and very abusive exchanges that happened to anybody who wasn't white British, actually, at that time in Roehampton and other areas. But it wasn't all but bad. Had some good times, but there was a lot of racism. Cherries thrown at me. I got called a black sausage, disinvited from birthday parties because, quote, they didn't have a back door. So those were in my formative years. Not amazing. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I grew up in South London like yourself in the 80s. But my experience of growing up in South London was completely different. I didn't really experience any racism. I do remember, though, in school, I did see like other African children who had traditional African hairstyles be called names by white kids. So that some of my black classmates would have traditional African hairstyles where they used the thread, to do the traditional style. Yeah. And I remember there used to be like, 2 or 3 white boys in our class that used to call them worms out of, and things like that. So I didn't directly experience racism, but I did see it happen to my African, classmates. I'm 46, so we're probably roughly around the same kind of decade, like in age. The first no comment of the interview. Yeah, so it's funny that we've both had these different experiences, but how did they have an impact on you, having those experiences in the 80s? Did they affect your self-esteem, your confidence, how you viewed yourself and the world at that time?
No, they didn't. They didn't really affect how I viewed myself, because I come from a long line of strong black people. Not achieving is not an option for my family. You will achieve, you will have self-worth, you will understand where you've come from, and you will aim higher, and you will inspire other people also to aim higher. So that's always been, kind of the backbone of my morals and values. But what it did do for me, I think it was just an early understanding that some people aren't understanding, and some people are scared of the other, and some people are just horrible and rude. And the fact that some of these comments actually came from teachers in my school, and then my mum would, I tell my mum, and she would come down and challenge them, just made me really understand that you can't just let these things slide. You do have to challenge them, otherwise they never stop. So maybe that's something that has inspired me to stand up for the underdog, which I probably do in nearly all of my my jobs and my life as well.
I mean, you've just mentioned about the fact that, you know, you have got this thing about fighting the injustices and fighting for the underdog and stuff. So what was your kind of aspirations in school then? What kind of things did you gravitate towards?
Well, like every child, I wanted to be an astronaut.
Did you really want to be an astronaut, Kemi?
I mean, who wouldn't want to be an astronaut? I mean, you know, I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to fly around space, see the world from the moon. I think I also thought we would be living on the moon by now. The year 2000 was like not really a good year, was it? So I wanted to be an astronaut for a long period of time. Then I guess just due to my own, due to what you know, my life experiences and what we experienced in London in terms of housing, I wanted to become an architect because we were put in some pretty dire social housing and temporary housing and stuff. And it was just really appalling, especially when you can see what life could be like in a different and bigger space.
Yeah.
So that was really where that stemmed from, me wanting to become a designer architect. I did actually do my degree in architecture. And then we headed into recession, much like what's happening now, headed into recession. There were not that many jobs going around. So that's why I'm not doing it. Well, that's part of the reason I'm not doing it now.
So it seemed then like from a young age then you had aspirations to help other people and stuff. Did you grow up on an estate? I grew up on an estate in the 80s. I grew up on Winstanley Estate in Battersea, which is not far from York Gardens. So did you grow up on an estate as well?
Roehampton Estate in
Roehampton. Yes. Okay, yes, because that's got quite a built-up area of estates. I think there's quite a lot of places around Wandsworth that is like that, where you have all different types of estates that are quite built up.
Yeah.
So once you decided that you wanted to do architecture, obviously inspired by your experiences of living on your estate, obviously you mentioned that you got your degree in architecture. What did you do then?
So I actually went out to Grenada after Hurricane Ivan and offered my services to the local village rebuilders. They were building all these new housing for people with like hurricane clips, so that they should be more sturdy. I designed some housing, and then I wanted to go out onto the site and build it with the builders who were local people from the village. And after I'd gotten dropped off at the site, and the main architect had gone off, the house builder actually just put our design on the side and just said, you haven't been here on site, so you don't understand the ground that we're working with, so these designs are not going to work. And then he just built these new housing for village people with just basically from his mind and from his knowledge. And I just realized how removed architects are from the actual building process, and that you need to be a lot more, you know, involved and engaged with sites in order to do very well in architecture. So I did that, came back to, I think it was in one of the holidays, and then I came back to the UK. But unfortunately for me, two things happened. One, my university shut down, so I had to redo the third year. And then at the end of the third year, I got hit by a car. So I was in hospital for about 2.5 months, and it took me like 2 years to really recover from that.
Do you want to tell us a bit about that then? Because obviously that is something that is major.
I was just cycling through Brixton to go meet a friend, and a car came round the corner and knocked me off my bike. Kept on driving, speeding away. They did get caught somewhere near Gatwick. And they had drugs in their car. For some reason, they did not get a caution or a warning. I have no idea why, made no sense. But I was knocked off my bike. I was in a coma for 2.5 weeks. I was in hospital for 2.5 months, kind of recovering from that. I got epilepsy as a result, and I had like a whole year of physical therapy really to get me back walking and using my arms again. At one point, I couldn't even see out of one of my eyes. So I feel really blessed to have two fully functioning eyes now, because at one point they thought that I was going to have to wear a patch forever. And it was really, I mean, definitely a life-changing accident, and definitely put me back quite a few years. I feel like I've been trying to catch up ever since.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. That sounds absolutely terrible. That must have had a real effect, not just only on your physical health, but also on your mental health as well. What was that time like for you then, going through that mentally?
Well, honestly, I was on a lot of drugs. I mean, a lot of my friends are like, say to me, it was really upsetting when you were unconscious. But again, I was unconscious, so I don't remember it. And when I did come through, when I did wake up, then I was on morphine and codeine and loads and loads of drugs to really prevent me from feeling the pain. I had brain surgery, so actually had a subdural hematoma, which is a blood clot in your brain. So I had brain surgery, and I was really recovering from all of those kind of things. So that wasn't fun. And then I just like to be active at all times. So not being able to be active because you're walking around with a Zimmer frame because your legs can't support yourself, or a walking stick, and that did get better because you keep falling over because your balance is off. Just meant I couldn't do any of the things that I wanted to do. I couldn't drink, I couldn't go dancing, and I was quite young. I was like 23, 24. So that's what really young people are doing at that point in time. But I couldn't go out. I didn't have any money because I couldn't work. I didn't have lots of money because I couldn't work, so I had to sign on. That is a joke. And I wasn't allowed to work medically for 2 years. It was very isolating, is the word.
Did you go through depression at that time as well?
I maybe did. It was in this period of time that I realized I was epileptic, because I kept losing time.
Yeah.
So, imagine walking into a room, and then an hour later, you're standing in the room. You don't know what you've been doing for an hour. You don't know why you're in the room. And most of the time I was forgetting to eat because I forgot that I hadn't eaten. So I wasn't very well. And also I was a bit too proud to tell anybody that I wasn't very well. And it wasn't until I actually had a epileptic turn, I thought it was wise to go see the doctor and for them to find out what was wrong with me. And then it turned out I had epilepsy, which was, it's always good to know that when you have a diagnosis, what's wrong. So, but yeah, I was just very bored. I didn't have anything to do, very bored.
You mentioned about the fact that, you didn't tell anybody because maybe a little bit of pride about, having to reach out to people. Do you think that came a little bit from your background? Did it connect to that, do you think, the way that you were brought up to be strong and reliant? You mentioned about coming from a family of strong Black people.
I think it's a mixture of, there's definitely certain elements of that for sure, but also, I just become an adult, like my own house. And I just really wanted to manage my life myself without being fussed over by parents, and just being able to do what I wanted to do, live my life, control my life, have my own, basically be in charge of my own life without my mum mothering me. So I didn't speak to her. I didn't tell anybody because I guess in a way, I didn't want their help. I wanted to be able to prove that I could look after myself and do it on my own. And the other half of it was I didn't know that I needed the help. Or I needed the support. But in hindsight, I did. And even when people tried to help me, I didn't want their help. The other thing, I think also, recovering from a brain injury just means that for me anyway, it affected me that I became very unorganized or disorganized. I couldn't remember things. It's also part of, the epilepsy. I couldn't remember things. So I started missing a lot of appointments. I've developed really good systems for things like that now, but missing appointments or not being where I said I was going to be at the time I said I was going to be, but maybe being there a day later or 2 hours before and then leaving. It was a very confusing time. And I even actually had an occupational therapist, but didn't feel like I wanted to burden her with some of these issues. And I think some of that just comes from being a British person, and having that sort of mentality.
Well, once you realized that, then that the fact that you did need help, were you more open to help then? Was your family there to support you through this difficult time? And were you allowing them to be part of this, recovery journey with you?
Oh, no. I mean, when I say I realize I need help now, I mean like now. not like 15 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, when I needed the help. It wasn't like it was a bit of time and then I said, oh, I need some help. It was like I didn't ask for help at all. I just powered through, got through to the other end, and now I'm like, oh yes, you see, if I had gotten help then, probably wouldn't have taken me this long. No, I didn't ask for help. I just powered through. To this day, I think it was only a couple of weeks ago I said to my mom I really needed help. She was like, I kept trying to send you food and you wouldn't take it. I'm like, that's not true. I definitely, when she sent me food, I would definitely eat that and send back the pot. Thank you. But she was like, I kept trying to ask if you needed help, and you would just never say anything. So I think that's partly being British, partly my upbringing, partly my own personal pride.
That must have been very difficult, though, considering all that you've shared with me about how the impact of your injuries of that accident, what it did to your life. The fact that you powered through that, I mean, that must have been extremely difficult for you to do, because, you must have been in pain, you had all these other things going on, it's not just about your physical injuries, your mental health, and then you've had some your circumstances as well, because you mentioned you had to at one point sign on and couldn't work and stuff. So the fact that you got through that, you must have been, oh my gosh.
I mean, the signing on part was the worst, I think. And the signing on part, because I signed on and I said I can't work, and they were just like, you're a young person, you have to go to work. I gave them a doctor's letters. Doctor says not allowed to go to work for 2 years. Yes, but you walked in here, they've said to me, and I said, and here is my Zimmer frame that I walked in here with, because I can't afford to get a taxi because I'm trying to sign on. But and then they gave me like weird rules, like, well, you've got to start looking for work. I was like, well, what am I looking for work for? I've been told that I cannot work. I've been signed off for 2 years. I've had a brain injury. You can see the scar like right across the top of my head, because my head was totally shaved. A massive scar across my head. Literally can't work, but I do need to pay bills, eat food, and pay my rent. I've been told to sign on. And actually had to take DWP to a tribunal to force them to give me the benefits that I required, which was, severe disability allowance and all those other payments that you get, which actually just meant that I could survive. But it took them 6 months. So in that 6-month period, life was really a struggle. I was receiving something like £38 a week.
Going through their system is actually quite humiliating and soul destroying, and they lack compassion as well. So I can totally understand, how it must have felt to actually deal with them. I can't imagine what it's like for people who are in a longer situation. Obviously, you were on it for a time and transitioned on, to be able to work like myself, but how it must be for people who are on it that can't transition on that easily to get work and stuff, it's a horrible system. So after this period of your life, because obviously you talked about the fact that it was like a 2.5-year period, with everything that happened to you, what was going on in your mind towards the end of that time when you were thinking about your aspirations and maybe your dreams of continuing architecture? Was that something that was on your mind once you started to feel a bit better in yourself?
What happened was I always need to keep myself active. So after about a year of being told I wasn't allowed to work, I went and did some volunteering, and signed up to be a mentor, and went off and did some volunteering with young people. because it was something to keep my brain working. I've always worked with young people. I've been a Brownie leader, the summer camps, that sort of stuff. Besides, I come from a big family, big extended family as well. So always been around children, so I know how to communicate and control them. So I signed up to do some volunteering, working with young offenders in Lambeth, young people who were young offenders, who needed something better to do than, painting walls and digging up gardens and just being in these environments where they get to talk to other young people who are offenders or, potential offenders, and just swap ideas about how to do crimes a lot better and not get caught, which is not the aim of reparations. But all my mentees were just saying, oh yeah, I next time I'm going to steal a bike, this is what I was told to do. And I'm like, there should be no next time. Let's go and channel your energies into something a bit more positive. So that was one part of it. How can I get them out of that cycle? And the other part of it was just me remembering what it was like to be without money and be quite lonely and not having eaten or forgetting to eat and not being able to do anything about it. And then I decided to retrain as a youth and community worker. So I did a degree and I did a master's at the same time for some reason, because someone was offering it for free. I was just bored, so I needed to fill my time with things. So that's why I decided to do. I retrained as a youth community worker, did a master's, did 2 masters actually in psychology and psychology related subjects. Both of those kind of things are of the reason that the whole project, Be Enriched, and the community canteens came into fruition. Although, albeit about 10 years after, 10 years, probably not, but like 6 years after I'd recovered, so to speak. So recovered to a point where I could start something new.
So after you then had the accident and you then got into community work, and then how long was it then after you said, was it 6 years before you set up Be Enriched?
I think it was about 6 years. I got a job working for Quorum. It was like somebody I used to work for years before that, who had a job that was coming up and thought I might like to do it. So that was good. I thought I would be good at it, not just like to do it. I wish it was that easy. So I worked for her for about 4.5 years. Then I got made redundant. And that was great, because I realized how much I hate working for people. And I like to be in charge. I got made redundant, and then I used that time, like 9 months or so when I was redundant, to set up my charity, really.
Yeah. And what was that feeling like, being able to set up your own charity, Be Enriched? And how did that feel? How did that feel for you after coming through all that you went through?
But I like being a boss.
I understand that, actually, because I like being my own boss as well. It's more stress free. It's a different type of stress than working for somebody. Yeah, definitely understand that. So did it kind of renew you and give you like a sense of new purpose? Because obviously you had your architecture thing, and then obviously you had the accident, but then now you've got to set up this charity, Be Enriched. Did it renew your passion, purpose, focus in life?
Well, it was actually just supposed to be a little fun side hustle project.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was just going to be one project on a Friday, bring the young offenders down, mix them with some business people, local people, take them out of their comfort zone, cook a nice meal.
Did like local supermarkets and other kind of local businesses help to provide the resources and stuff that you need, to do that?
Absolutely. Just to clarify, we weren't cooking meals for the young people. The young people were cooking meals for everybody else.
Oh no. Okay. That's great. Gosh, how did you get them motivated to do that? Because, I know what young people are like. I've got a daughter.
Exactly.
Yeah, she likes to be cooked for.
Out of their comfort zone. Take them out of their comfort zone. And with some of them, even though they would cook this delicious, like 3-course meal, bribe them with a Nando's.
Oh, really? So why would they want Nando's after cooking their meals, after cooking
Oh.
those lovely meals?
Well, Nando's is actually quite expensive. Okay,
It is for what it
it's quite
is.
for what it is, especially it's chicken and chips, isn't it?
It's one up from KFC, if I'm being honest with you. I've always been underwhelmed by Nando's food, but
Yeah,
anyway.
but the kids love it. It's like
Yeah,
fancy chicken and chips.
yeah,
So we could bribe them with chicken and chips, especially a lot of these young people who, meat is with every meal. So we would get them to cook a vegetarian meal, and they couldn't really understand having a meal that didn't have meat in it.
yeah,
So we would bribe them with a Nando's, and the old people who come to the meal would also like give them a lot of compliments. We never like shared the information about why these young people were there, but they somehow just knew that the young people were in trouble
yeah.
or had been in trouble, and were just very nice and kind to them, and brought a few of them to tears
Oh,
with
okay.
their kindness. Like that's real rehabilitation and reparations, actually, when
Yeah,
the young people were actually delivering something to people of the age of the people they perpetrated those crimes against on the
yeah.
whole. So that's really how that project came about and why.
So what made you want to take that next step to go into politics?
Again, I didn't plan on doing that. I did. So I know we met around when we were doing the TEDx talk,
Yeah,
but what had actually happened just before that is I had been asked to give a speech. Wait, was that before? Right, so I was forced to do the TEDx talk by a member of my team.
Yeah,
They were like, you need to do it. You need to promote, be enriched. You are our figurehead. You're such a good speaker, blah, blah, blah.
yeah,
I wasn't too convinced myself, but so I went off and I did that. And then as a result of that, the local Labour Party had asked me to come and open up a speech for Sadiq Khan, because when he was standing for mayor. So I went and
yeah,
did how wonderful the mayor of London,
yeah.
Sadiq Khan. It was really great.
He's from the same area though, isn't he? Isn't he from Wandsworth, Fiftteen, somewhere
He
like
is.
that? Yeah.
He's a Tooting boy. We love him. I don't know if you know this, but his dad used to drive a bus.
Yes, yeah, I had heard that. Yeah, I had heard that. So
You have heard that.
he's got real ground roots then.
He really
Yeah.
does. He really does. So I went and did that, and I've been involved in a lot of Labour stuff. But at that event, someone said to me, "Oh, you should stand as a councillor." And I said, "I'm not sure I can. I'm not sure. I'm not even a member of the party."
Yeah.
I became a member of the party,
Yeah.
and then I was just strong-armed into standing for election. I'm not joking. I was
I love
strong-armed.
the
I
way
was
you
just
kind of say things, strong-armed, forced.
kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
Well, everyone just said, please do it. And to be, when I heard about what the job was, firstly, I just spent a lot of my time writing to my local councillors and complaining about everything. And then because of the nature of the community meals that we do on a Friday, a lot of people would come to us with their issues, their problems, concerns. So I started passing on this, which I now know is called casework, passing this on to my local councillors. And can you deal with this? Can you support this person? And then I realized they got paid to do that. I thought, well,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I'm doing this for free.
But it was your training as well. That was your training without you even realizing it.
Very true, very true. Yeah, I just thought, well, hang on. And then I realized how many people who go to that meal live in the area. I think I would win if I put myself forward. So I tend not to put myself forward for things I'm going to lose or I won't be
Really?
good at. Yeah, I don't like failing or losing or people
Yeah.
telling me no as well. I don't
Oh,
like that.
really?
So I won't. So I go at it from a defensive point of view. Like,
Yeah.
if I think someone's going to tell me no, I'm just not going to ask them.
Oh, wow.
But then again, you have to think about it. If you
Yeah.
can't back your own ideas, and then you probably shouldn't put them forward. So if I'm in
Yes.
doubt, I'll probably just like hold off.
Yeah.
So I thought I'm going to win this if I put myself
Yeah.
forward. I should do it, and then I did, and I won, like I thought I was going to do.
Yeah. Gosh, you've got such self-belief. You know, that's really evident. You know, the fact that you can make that bet on yourself to say, "Do you know what, if I put myself forward to do something, I'm going to follow it through. This is what I believe in, and I'm going to win." That's real self-belief because, you know, you hadn't been in politics before. You hadn't, you know, been a councillor before. But the fact that you kind of had that sense to say, you know what, if I go for it, I'm going to win it. And you did that. You know, that's powerful.
You have to back yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
who else is going to do it for you?
Exactly. That's one thing I've definitely learned along my own journey is that you have to have that self-belief in yourself. If you wait for other people to have it in you, you know, you'll never get anything done. What did you do to have to become a counsellor? What kind of things did you have to do to get yourself out there?
So you have to be a member of the party for a year for a start.
Right.
And then you have to attend a whole bunch of really interesting meeting. I say in inverted commas because they're not interesting at all. But you have to attend a whole bunch of meetings every month with people so that they know who you are. Then you fill out a form to apply to put yourself forward for a specific seat because you can only apply for a seat. And then you're interviewed, your references are checked, and your social media is scrolled through as well.
Yeah.
Your references are checked. You go for an interview, and then there's a vote on who are the 3 people that they want to put forward, or 7 people, sorry, they want to put, you know what, it's a arbitrary number, people that want to be put forward to give a speech to your local branch about why you should be selected. I actually had to do mine from Los Angeles because
Wow.
because I was away for a potential friend's wedding in Los Angeles, and I asked very nice. This was before COVID. See, we were using these technologies before COVID. I think it was like FaceTime or something. I did my speech from there and asked for them to select me, and I got selected. And then you spend the next like 8 months to a year kind of raising your profile. I didn't have that much of a fight really in Tooting because Tooting is it's a staunch like Labour home. So I didn't have too many people to try and convince, and a whole bunch of knocking on doors. I think I did about every week I was doing something like 40,000 steps, maybe even not more on actual election day. I did about 40,000 steps every single day. My legs, my knees, my hips, I'm feeling it now. They were really like hurting so bad. And just trying to get people out there to go and vote Labour, because they're not really voting for you as a person. Although I think they had a personal vote as well, but they're not really voting for you as a Labour. They're you as a person, they're voting for the party. But I did have some people who were like voted for me.
Yeah, I think that it is about voting for the person because obviously you are the face of what you're trying to represent, which is your party. You know, I think that they probably were voting for you as a person as well, even though obviously they're voting for the party.
I want to agree with you, but I
Yeah.
had something like 3,025 votes or something. I
Okay.
had 3,025 votes.
Yeah.
I don't know that amount of people in Tooting. I know that when I was knocking on people's doors, it was very
Yeah.
interesting. I would knock on people's doors and they would say, "Are you the candidate?" Of course, I will vote for a sister. Several people said that. Of course, I will vote for a sister. And I think it's because, you know, people noticed that there was not a lot of diversity. Well, there isn't a lot of diversity in politics as a whole, but definitely not at Wandsworth Council. It's improved slightly, but you know, we can always do better. You know, so people will vote for you because of your name, and then also with that in mind, because we still do live in racist Britain. Let's not forget that people wouldn't vote for me because of my name without even having met me. So that's very interesting.
Because obviously you mentioned earlier about racism as a young person, and obviously experiencing this racism, you know, about your name when people wouldn't vote for you and stuff. So what kind of things did you do then to kind of encourage people to vote for you then? Or what was it something that you just kind of soldiered through?
Well, I think I already had a very good platform for in the local area with good standing in the local area, involved in you know, sustainability work, healthy streets and tooting, involved in the local community organisation that organises events and stuff, involved in the neighbourhood forum that was involved in, and then I was also running my community meal, which was open to anybody, also in my very same ward where I set up my charity. So I knew a lot of people there already. I mean, and because I'd lived there at that time, probably like 8-9 years, so I knew a lot of people there already. I didn't have much convincing. No one contacted me. I didn't get any hate mail. You know, you don't get to see all of the ballots that people tick. So, but I did notice some people wouldn't vote for me. They would vote for the other two, and then just not vote for me at all, or not even use their third vote. So I didn't really have to do anything too much. I just knew that some people weren't going to vote for me, and that's fine. But more people did, so I'm elected.
Yeah, exactly, because you were elected. So then how did that feel then when you were elected and you heard your name called?
I was tired. The actual election day, I'm not joking.
Did you celebrate? Did you go and celebrate?
Oh,
that's such an amazing achievement.
I had all these plans to celebrate. I organised a barbecue the day after. It's like, if I win, you know, we'll have a barbecue the day after. But then actually doing, it's called the count. And you spend all day out, you know, knocking on people's doors, making sure they've gone out to vote, not just in your ward, but in other wards across the borough, and sometimes in other boroughs if they're struggling. And then you get back to the town hall and all of these votes need to be counted. So there's like 375,000 people in Wandsworth.
Wow.
Not all of them will vote, but, you know, say 40% of them vote. Can't do the maths, but that's a lot of bits of paper to be counted and checked and rechecked. By the time these votes were counted, it was like 5 a.m. I've been out the day before, I've been up. I was exhausted. I got home, passed out, almost cancelled my birthday barbecue. Not birthday barbecue, it feels like a birthday. Almost cancelled my, you know, election barbecue because I was just exhausted and drained. And, you know, it's after loads of months of door knocking. And I guess when I got elected, we also didn't win overall. So I was then also facing 4 years in opposition. Not anymore. But so I did celebrate, yes, but I was very tired and it was grudging, again, kicking and screaming.
But it seems like you've achieved a lot by kicking and screaming.
It's because once I say yes to something, like you said earlier, I'm in it, I'm committed. That's me. I'm doing it until I can't do it anymore, or I don't want to do it anymore, or whatever circumstances happen. I'm committed to things.
So with your new political position, because at the time obviously you got elected councillor of your ward, did you feel like it helped you to make a real difference, especially in the things that you were doing with being Enriched and helping other people in your community? Do you think it kind of made a way for you to make a real difference with that power?
In opposition, there's not as much power as you think that you might have. That is very hard to make lots of changes. But one thing I did do, and I did it every year, was raise issues around food insecurity and issues around I don't want to say but kind of diversity and Black and Asian representation in the council and at all its many levels over the next 4 years. 2 of course which were in COVID. So I did get to do some. I mean, most of the main really good things that you get to do is when you house somebody who's struggling with housing, or some person who can't get into their shower, a new bathroom, or a wall painted, or something. Those are the small things that really make a difference. Getting a bin reinstalled on the corner of the road, that was like a big achievement.
But it's those small things though that make a difference, though, isn't it? You know,
and those are the things that affect people on a day-to-day basis, like making sure their rubbish is collected. So many emails about fly tipping all the time. But those things that's what people see, that's what people care about, like how are you helping my everyday life? And I have to
Exactly.
help everyday people. Now, we look at things like strategy, but all these kind of things don't filter down to the everyday person who's just like
Exactly.
going to work. They want to make sure they can get on the tube, they
Yeah.
can feed their kids, they can heat their houses,
Yeah.
that they don't get into debt. That's really what everyone is concerned about.
Exactly. Because these are the things that are going to make people come out and vote. What are you actually doing in my life? What differences am I seeing in my local area? Things that affect me. I think sometimes, if I'm being honest with you, I mean, I live in Lambeth, but I think some of that is lost with, the representatives around here. And obviously, those things can affect people and think, well, I'm not going to vote because I don't see anything what they're doing for my life. I've complained about certain things. We've asked for certain things and certain things are not getting done. So I read that during the pandemic that you really did take your food initiative to new heights, because obviously the pandemic and COVID, obviously the issues that you have been talking about in terms of debt, food poverty, people can't heat their homes and different things like that. We went through a very long period of lockdown and that affected people in so many different ways. So I read that during that time you did some amazing work. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
I want to preface that by saying I was supported by an
Yeah,
amazing team of people.
yeah,
And I say amazing team, there were like 30 of them in the end, maybe more, and like
yeah,
400 volunteers. So yeah, well, as you would be aware in that TED talk, what I was talking about was me being quite worried that people were going to have to make that decision between housing, heating, and fuel. And I was it was kind of like my warning. I'm like Nostradamus predicting the future.
yeah.
Based on my
2017, you said this. Yeah,
based on my experiences in Los Angeles that summer, and unfortunately, a lot of it has come to pass. And
yes,
I'm not the only person who's been mouthing off about it. There's loads of academics who've been talking about it for years, but it's come to pass, and we are right now at a crunch point. I think I was saying to the business forum this morning that food inflation is at 15.7%, which
it's
is more
crazy.
than, that's more than inflation overall. That's just for food. During the first lockdown, we brought together Bricks and People's Kitchen, which is the social enterprise I run, and Be Enriched, which is the charity that I founded, and we pulled our resources together and set up a emergency food hub in North Lambeth, and a smaller one in the United Reformed Church in Tooting,
Yeah,
from which we were sending food out to around 400 people a week, maybe a little bit more if we count some of the people that would just come to the gates and just say that they don't quite fit into the category of people that can be supported by the government, and that whatever rules they had at the time, it just
yeah,
chopped and changed all the time. And they don't quite fit, but they can't go to work. They've got, a myriad of different illnesses, which all together mean that they need to be shielded, and they can't go to the shops and they can't access food. So the team, I really don't know how we pulled it out the bag, but we worked with Lambeth Council, a little bit with Wandsworth Council, and a lot with the people that we worked with already in my community meals, at which point I actually had 3 community meals, one in Battersea, one in Elephant and Castle, and one in Tooting. So between them, there was about 200 people that were also stuck at home. And the team basically, we just sent out every week, we would send out a big box of food, like normal food suitable for people with diabetes, suitable for, all those different allergens and issues that people can have. And we would send them out by bicycle, some by car, but mainly by bicycle, and just hand deliveries every week for the first 12 weeks, and then a little bit more for the subsequent month. Then we turned our community shop, our community cafe, into a community shop, mainly because people just said they were really happy about these huge boxes of food they got, but they would much rather choose what they had. So they would bring
Yeah.
back quite a few things like, I don't eat this, don't eat that.
Yeah.
Like, we'll swap it for an apple, an extra loaf of bread or something like that.
Yeah.
So we opened a community shop, and that was really amazing and wonderful, of course, until we got evicted, but that was fine.
You got evicted. What happened?
I
How
mean,
does a food initiative get evicted, please?
well, if you do a Google Brixton People's Kitchen and Black Prince Trust, you'll see it was in the news and everything.
Oh,
We
really?
basically, we smashed it. With the shop was like a huge success. The local people that never go into this sports center were coming in, and we were like, well, when the sports start, you should go and try doing football. You should do this, that, the other, basketball and stuff. And some company came sniffing around, saw that we had footfall of like 250 people a week, then just said to our landlord, we want that building. And so they just gave us 12 weeks notice and just
Wow.
evicted us. I know, right?
That's
So
crazy.
it is. We were doing a great service to the community. So all of
So
the
they picked
community,
money. They picked money over the service that you were giving to the community.
well, I thought it was about money. So I asked them,
Yeah.
what do you need more rent? Yes. How much money do you want? We're not telling you. You have to put in a proposal.
Gosh.
Yeah, exactly. My mind was like, you don't want us here. That's
Yeah.
fine, but you should just be honest about it. We put in a proposal nevertheless to go through the motions. It was rejected. But here's the kicker. Company moves in with however much rent they said they were going to pay them. The community boycott the business. The only people that they have going in there are like builders, not
Yeah.
builders, but I mean like bodybuilders, not
Yeah.
bodybuilders. They're charging £18 for a plate of food, whereas we were charging £5 to £10 for a bag of like food people go out and cook. So their business fails. Their business, maybe as a result of however much they had agreed to pay, then goes into liquidation.
Yeah.
And the venue is empty again. And so
Wow.
nobody's getting any rent. So there you go.
There's a lesson there to be learned. Don't underestimate the power of the people. They looked on that. They saw that what you were doing, the footfall and everything, and thought, oh, okay, yeah, we'll have a piece of that action. Yep. And then they went and got it and found that actually it wasn't for them. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes these lessons come round.
It's true. It's true. It wasn't because the project wasn't so much about us making money, but it was about us providing a service people needed, but just covering our costs.
Yeah,
which they didn't realize. But that's what happens.
All those people that you helped anyway through what you were doing, I'm sure they were really, really grateful, because that's a real need for a lot of people, especially in areas like Brixton and Wandsworth. This is a service that you were offering with your team that was really, really benefiting people. And that's a fantastic thing, Kemi, what you and your team did. You're really, just listening to you, you really are such a community person and really inspiring. No, I'm being honest. I myself obviously am founder of a peer empowerment non-profit, which I've been running for 11 years. Oh, thank you very much. And to hear how you really connect community, you've got a real strong sense of community, helping people, empowering people through many different things, so it's no surprise to me that you were elected councillor, to be honest with you, because when I think of a councillor to be elected, it's people like you who are community minded, who make a difference. So tell me then, how did you then go up to become the first Black female deputy leader of Wandsworth Council and deputy leader within the Labour Party? How did you get to that position? What happened?
Well, okay, it's two different accolades. I'm the first Black person, full stop, and I'm the first woman.
Yes, Black woman. Sorry.
Yes. Well, I actually stood for deputy leader of the Labour group when we were in opposition, and I guess at that point nobody really wanted to do the job because it involved more work and not really, you don't really get reimbursed for that time that you put in as deputy leader in opposition. Well, a small amount, but not like really a lot. So I stood because I thought I could be a good sort of spokesperson for exactly those reasons, to increase my visibility so that more people see that politics could be a route for them in terms of supporting people in the community. So that's really why I stood for deputy leader. Then I was deputy leader, and then we were in lockdown for 2 years, so I was not as visible as I had hoped.
Not virtually.
Well, virtually, but only virtually, and then you're one of like 1 million people on a screen, aren't you? And then in the wonderful landslide victory that we had in May last year, it's almost a year, I can't believe it. In May last year, I then stood to be re-elected as deputy, and I think, well, hopefully people thought I did such a good job. I stood uncontested. That was great. And here we are now.
Wow.
Next step, leader of the world.
Sky's more than the limit for you. I'm telling you, your progression and just how you just kind of, your journey is just as I said, very, very inspirational. So what has it been like then being in this position? First of all, from the historic sense of knowing you are the first Black woman in the 119-year history to have this position, what did that actually feel like for you? Did you realize the significance of that?
A good friend of mine was asked me to write an article for The Independent. He said, if you win, will you write an article? Again, it was 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And he was berating me down the phone for not having written this article. I was like, I'm so tired. You're gonna have to write this with me. I'm exhausted.
I read it.
Yeah, it was when we wrote the article, and then I realized this is actually really important, not just for me, but also for people all over the country. It signifies a total change to the old guard. That we're putting people of color in positions of power, which is great.
Yes.
And really, I just started to a lot of weight on my shoulders to be a really good role model for other people. But actually, I don't mean to sound like I'm boasting, but I actually don't find that too difficult to be a good role model, because I just live my life really well. So to be a good role model is very important.
Yes.
And then moving into the council, and right now I'm in my office in the town hall. If you've ever been here, it's pretty special. It's a marble town hall, like a marble hall. How opulent!
Yes, I know the building. Yeah,
you know it, right? So my office is in the marble hall, and then actually starting the work. Just there is so much to do. There's so much to unpick and put back together, so that all the things that we deliver in Wandsworth right now are things that are our priorities as a Labour group, as a Labour Party, and as local people, because we know where money hasn't been spent, where it should be spent, and where the needs are. Of course, we've also empowered just in time for the cost of living crisis to kick off. So we've also been fighting a lot of fires with that. My knowledge as a community leader has come in very handy, and linking the council in with a lot of the other voluntary sector, which is something that hasn't really been a priority for the council for as long as I've lived in Wandsworth anyway. So yeah, it's been very, very useful.
Yeah, so obviously being in this position, you've been able to do a lot of the work that needs to be done, and empowering, groups and people who have been kind of probably gone under the radar for probably a long time.
The thing is, what I was saying to you, and what we both experienced, not being in charge. I'm not in charge because we're governed by a lot of other people, and there's also the leader of the council as well. But I'm not entirely in charge. But the thing that frustrates me the most is the red tape. Everything does take forever to happen because everything has to go through certain processes and procedures and signed off by certain people. So that part is frustrating, and a lot of the change that I put in place last year is only now actually happening, because it takes a really long time.
So can you give an example of one or two things that you've been able to have a hand in making changes in? That you just mentioned about the fact that a couple of things have come through now. Can you share one or two?
Yeah, I can actually. We now have a voluntary sector team. So
Yeah.
those are people that look after people who work in the third sector and those community groups that did not exist before. So
Yeah.
that's one thing, a department for the voluntary sector, amazing. Another thing that I've put together is actually a commission on poverty, the effects of poverty, food insecurity, just general inequality as well, and the effects of the cost of living crisis on people, which we know we're going to feel the expense, that we're going to feel for the next 4 years,
Yeah.
for sure. So that's something else. And one of the first things I did was I introduced a £150,000 grant for community groups, because one thing they were always saying is, well, the grant system we have right now only funds new projects, and what we need is core costs. So I put that in place almost immediately. So those are just a few things I've done.
All great things, all very, very good things that are going to benefit the people in the community.
Yeah.
So, you have, as I said, become a history maker. And one of the things we've kind of touched on during the course of our chat is that subject of racism. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, because a little while in the conversation, back in the conversation, you mentioned about not enough Black, Asian, minority groups being in positions of power within the structure, management, higher leadership structure within Wandsworth, and just in general. Sometimes we see that a lot, actually. If you look at CEO companies and stuff like that, or even your church, you never really see people of Black, Asian minority or BME minorities in positions of real power. They'll have some type of position, but not those positions. Obviously, you've got this position now, and it's a very significant position. Have you experienced racism? Have you seen changes, during your course of being deputy leader of Wandsworth Council? Have you seen more Black and Asian people or people of colour being put into positions, prominent positions? And as I mentioned, have you still experienced any type of racism that's come along with your historical position that you've now got?
Sad to say, not really. I have not seen an increase. In the past 5 years, we've gone from 2 Black councillors to 2 Black councillors in Ravigavindia, and 7 Black and brown councillors and Ravigavindia. So that's a good change. That's a good change. That's welcome for sure. Apart from that, not really. And it's definitely something that we're looking at. We've just had a new chief exec, and I know it's something that he's looking at, and it's definitely something that we're looking at. Like, it's not just about appointing people into positions, but ensuring that everybody has the opportunity and fair opportunity to get the experience that they need, or the education that they need for those roles as well. So it's not just as simple as appointing people into jobs, but making sure that people are prepared and have the opportunity to apply. So it's a bit more systemic, but I think this is one of the things that we will be talking about in our commission as well. It's come up already, to be honest.
Well, it's good to hear that some wheels are in motions to empower and equip people for those positions as well. So have you yourself experienced any racism in this sense? Because obviously we've talked about racism you experienced as a young person, racism that you experienced in other life circumstances. Has things changed for you in that sense?
I somehow have managed not to have experienced racism.
Great.
I had one troll that actually sent me an email. It was like badly written, badly spelt, and it was to my work email account, my charity email account. 2 sentences, and that was last year, end of last year. That was just using some swear expletives, N-word, and in 5 years, I've escaped relatively unscathed somehow.
That's great. That's fantastic to know that, even with this historic position that you're in, you're not experiencing racism. And, people will be people at the end of the day. But I'm glad in your work environment and where you are amongst your colleagues and everything, you're not experiencing that. So that is fantastic, because we've had so much stuff on the news and just people's experiences, you know, of experiencing racism and everything else, you know, for a lot of people, it's still quite prevalent today.
There are some very, what do you call it, like strict spam sort of filters on our emails. So maybe I'm just not receiving them.
Well, that's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not something anybody wants to receive. So before we finish up about this interview, I wanted to just ask you, what are your next steps? What is your next kind of plans? Do you have any kind of further aspirations or things that you want to achieve? Actually, before you answer that, did you ever think that when you were going through all that stuff you were going through, you know, after you had your accident, that you would be at this place today doing all what you're doing? Did you?
No, absolutely not. Politics wasn't on my radar.
Yeah.
I didn't think my charity, well, I didn't know I was going to set up a charity for a start. And I didn't think it would be doing what it is right now. Had no idea we would start opening a whole bunch of community shops across the borough, across the boroughs in general. That's cool. No. What my next steps? Where can I go from here? My future aim, obviously, when I was younger was, when I decided I wanted to do sort of public service, was I want to run my own charity. So I've done that.
Do you still want to be an astronaut?
It's probably more feasible now than before that I might actually go to the moon, because you can buy a ticket, can't you? I mean, yeah, probably more feasible that I'm actually going to get there right now. So
I wouldn't be surprised.
Politically wise, I mean, the leader of the council, becoming an MP, working at the GLA, being an assembly member, prime minister.
Yeah, definitely possible. Definitely possible.
Maybe in, not as the next step, prime minister, but you never know.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, even though it's opposite party, we see that Rishi Sunak, who is Asian, is now prime minister, you know, which is a significant thing, you know, because obviously, obviously up until this point, we've never had a prime minister of color. So, you know, obviously in that sense, it's very, very significant. But who knows, Kemi, I wouldn't even be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if I scroll on Twitter someday and see that you've now got into somewhere else and doing something else amazing, you know. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I'd be like, yep, I definitely would believe it.
Well, my memoirs will be called Kicking and Screaming into Politics.
Yes, I was pushed, I was forced, but I've got into all these fabulous positions and I've made such an impact. But, you know, when you say that, actually, it just shows that people really do believe in you, even though you believe in yourself and you've got like a real high sense of self-belief and focus and vision. The people who are around you believe in you too. Because when they're asking you to write articles or they're asking you to put yourself forward for TED Talks or to give speeches and stuff, it's because they believe in you and what you have to offer. So that's an amazing, you know, an amazing thing. So as we finish up the interview, what encouragement would you give to other people, other women who may have been going through, you know, seasons of adversity, who may have gone through some really, really challenging times and may feel that they can't achieve the things that they want to achieve? Because obviously your journey started a bit later on in life.
I would say, you know, life isn't stationary. Things change. Your life will change. You're going to change. Just be open to being flexible, open to new experiences. It doesn't matter if you feel like, you know, what you had wanted to do initially or has disappeared, because new opportunities crop up all the time. And take the opportunity and ask for help.
I think that's a really good one, because obviously you mentioned about, you know, your experiences. I just want to thank you, Kemi, for agreeing to come on to Living the Empowered Life podcast. I've really enjoyed talking to you. It's been fun. I've laughed a lot. You know, you're a great storyteller, and you know, your journey from where you were to where you are now is a real inspiration to me. And, you know, I know that you're going to just go on to do really, really great things. And I want to thank you for your time, because I know you're a very, very busy lady. But thank you so much for agreeing to come onto the podcast. And
pleasure.
Thank you so much. And if anybody wants to find out what it is that you're doing, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter, BEEKEMIA, or I'm on Instagram, Kemi.A.Akinola, AKINOLA, that's my name. Or you can go on my website, kemialondoner.com.
Okay, so what I will do is that I will put the links to all those social media platforms in the show notes and in the description box on YouTube, and then people can find you there. I just want to congratulate you again on your achievements. It is a great look. It's a great thing for people of color to see somebody like yourself in this position and seeing your example of hard work, integrity, and compassion for others, you know, is definitely something that living the empowered life is all about. So thank you, Kemi. So guys, be sure to check out Kemi's pages. I will leave links in the show notes. Also, as well, just to let you guys know, my new book, Exceptional, Not Expected, came out on Monday. So if you're looking to lead an exceptional, not expected life, please do check out my book and my social media pages. And I will see you guys on the next episode. Take care.